Welcome to the NBA Coast to Coast podcast brought to you by thelines.com. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we're looking at a little bit of a smaller slate here in the NBA on Tuesday than all of the games that we had on Monday. But does mean we do have a number of back-to-backs here with a bunch of teams having played on that big slate last night. So we're going to get into best bets here for you guys. We're also going to get play props up for you in another video. So make sure that you are subscribed to that page. Continue to follow along with us all season. Also head to thelines.com. Use all of the great content we're putting up on the site right now and that odds finder tool to make sure that you're getting the best odds and juice available to you from all of these books giving us bets this season. I do want to say we had a good night last night. I believe Nate overall went 6-3 on the night on the best bets there, 3-2 as we had a couple different options for you on the best bets video. But we'll continue to truck along, up roughly about 16 or so units on the season. So feeling pretty good as we are still up big money. Let's get into your first best bet here, Nate.
Yeah, took the Mavs last night, but now I will fade them as they are on a back-to-back at home against the Lakers. Lakers coming off, of course, the in-season tournament win. Probably going to be able to build some momentum off that, but more importantly, I mean, they're on 2 full days of rest. They are a veteran team that needs the rest, and the Mavs are banged up on top of the fact that they're on a back-to-back here. I mean, no Grant Williams, probably. Still no Josh Green, Maxi Kleba. THJ had to miss last night with back spasms. They said no timetable for Kyrie, so I'm assuming he's not going to be good to go. And while I was willing to take like the Luka show against Memphis, I don't think he can replicate that against a deeper, more athletic team. And I mean, Luka in his last 2 against the Lakers, 28 points per game, but on a 106 offensive rating. Poor splits. The Mavs are a team you can count on, not really winning against good teams. They, like I said, they handled bad teams. Yes, last night. That's why we trusted them. But since the start of last season, 8-25 straight up as dogs, 1-6 as home dogs, and 5-12 straight up on back-to-backs. You look at their recent back-to-backs this season, yeah, they got some wins against Orlando, Washington, but their last 2 gave up big points, 129 to Sac in a loss, 126 to OKC in a loss. They now have a 118 defensive rating on these back-to-backs, and it was 120 last season. The Lakers, lost 7 of their last 8 against Dallas. If that is, something that concerns you, I would say rather it's probably a source of motivation for LeBron and company as they, again, come into a good spot rest-wise. Their last loss early this season, they actually won the fourth quarter decisively, 30-13, and it was a 104-101 gross loss there last month. I mean, Kyrie, 28 points on 50% field goal shooting. Mavs absolutely needed that. Grant Williams played 32 minutes, helped hold AD down. AD coming off a monster performance, and against the Pacers. And, if there's no Grant Williams, then you're not going to be able to throw good bodies at both AD and LeBron in this matchup. The Mavs just don't, and even Derek Lively is not really a good matchup for AD. so early in his career. If this is a close game, Lakers are the number 1 defensive team in the clutch, 93 rating. They have a 97.8 rating here. I mean, coming off their last few, mostly in-season tournament games. And the Mavs have been good in the clutch as well, 5th in net. But you look at their last 4, they're down to -17 in their last 4. That's 23rd. They also have a poor rebounding rate in the clutch. Lakers are very good in that department. And Kyrie individually is +32 in the clutch. So not having him puts it all on Luka. I think the Lakers are a veteran team that can load up on him and make other guys beat them. And I don't think the Mavs have enough bodies right now to get through this on a back-to-back.
Yep, we're in the same boat. I started to like the Lakers more and more as I looked at it. The fear is any kind of letdown for them after winning the in-season tournament, which will have its own banner now in their rafters as they'll continue to add their next title to it on the same banner, just so you guys know how that'll work if you care. But I do think that would be the only concern, except for, like you said, this is just going to be another team on a back-to-back for the Mavs. You got a rest advantage for a team that can always use it. You've got a bit more health going for the Lakers, at least compared to the Mavs right now, right? Like the only guys really out are the one is Gabe Vincent, who's been out, and then Vanderbilt is of the 3 dudes that are questionable, right? Like LeBron, AD, and Jared Vanderbilt. The one that you actually could see not playing maybe is Jared Vanderbilt, who actually came off a legitimate injury roughly a week and a half ago. So like that's the only guy that you might consider. But I think we talked about it before the show. AD and LeBron, you count on both of them being in there for a good portion of the game. And this, yeah, it's not the same kind of situation that the Lakers have found themselves in against the Mavs in all of these, like you said, 7 of the last 8. It's a bit different with Luka with almost no weapons at his disposal moving forward. So I'm gonna just make my next bet a real simple parlay here because I believe I'm still getting close to plus money. No, I'm actually still down, but I'm gonna keep it at. So here's the thing: I'm going to take the Cavs, the Celtics money line, and I'm going to parlay that with the Lakers money line, and I'm also going to add the Nuggets money line to Nate's possible dismay. But I want to get it up to plus 182. And if you want to just keep it at the other at a two-legger here with just the sort of historic Lakers and Celtics parlay with those two teams as just a two-legger, I'm okay with that. It's minus 174. I would feel really bad about myself just handing that out. You can see the conundrum I'm in with all of these teams in a back-to-back, and the Nuggets haven't looked as good as they, as we might have wanted them to, but they definitely figured something out by the third quarter last night against the Hawks. Obviously, Trae Young getting knocked out of that game for his technical helped them, but they were already up when he left, and he was frustrated because they were losing, and so that's a big part of it all. There was something there, right, in terms of the way that they started D'ing up what they were ready for with the Trae Young style of basketball. Now they come in with a team that doesn't really have a style of basketball. It relies on guys like DeMar DeRozan to go clean off to keep them in that game like they were last night against the Bucks. And the Bucks and Bulls, say what you want, like the Bulls love playing the Bucks. That's been a team that they've had a lot of success against compared to like relative to how good they are versus how good the Bucks have been. This is not that situation, and we'll see them, this old tired team on a back-to-back after DeMar just went, like I said, clean off to like have to really get his usage all the way above 30%. I know you'll talk about that a little bit in player props. And so a fade of DeMar is really a solid fade of the Bulls with the way that the Nuggets seemed to figure things out last night. Shout out Strother, by the way. Julian Strother went clean off as well, and he's been really hot when called upon. So their bench has definitely come to play and is definitely better than this Bulls bench, which might be seeing a lot of guys from the bench into the starting lineup in this one if we see some guys out for Chicago. But either way, that one's that. I'll leave the Lakers one alone because I second everything Nate just said. And as far as the Celtics and Cavs go, Cavs on a back-to-back has not been good. Interestingly, the Cavs have had success against this Celtics team over the last 4 games, winning 3 of them. None of them were them on a back-to-back with the Celtics with so much rest and like a lot of rest now and coming off a nice win against the Knicks, who they've now owned a couple times in a row. Obviously, the splits for Boston are incredible. There's some like massive blowouts for them that they've had at home that have really skewed their numbers a little bit, but it's still very impressive to say that they're averaging 124 at home and winning those games by an average of 17 points. The Cavs on a back-to-back so far this season, they're 2-2 against straight up rather. They're 1-3 against the spread, and they're losing by an average of 9 points in those games, only scoring 104 per game in those back-to-backs, averaging a really slow pace as you would expect from that team. But yeah, they used up a lot last night too, and still lost to that Magic team who really pummeled them. Jalen Suggs came in. Hopefully you saw on Twitter, I was saying temper those Donovan Mitchell bets with Jalen Suggs being a late addition to the game when we thought he was a likely scratch. So now, with that level of intensity that they played with last night coming into the Celtics building, I don't like it for them.
Yeah, I mean, you gotta like the Celtics at home with extra rest, with Porzingis back. They've just been a well-oiled machine. And yeah, I mean, I'm not totally scared of the Nuggets. I just think when you throw in the 3 legs there, I'm like, who's most likely to mess this up? To me, it is the Nuggets, and it's more because the Bulls are not a team that you can read as easily as like the Mavericks per se. It's like they're not gonna win against when they're underdogs or in this situation. And the Mavs are so banged up, but the Bulls have been better without Zach LaVine. Like they have more defined roles. They're playing harder. They have found a bit of an identity. I still think it's fine with the Nuggets. I haven't seen that championship form from them yet. That makes me say like, yep, they're good on a back-to-back on the road, non-conference. Like they're gonna bring it every night. I think there's still a little bit of a hangover from them, which is the only reason I think it's safer to just go Celtics Lakers. I'm gonna stay with the angle I've used on Friday with the Celtics though, is that when they're home, they score a ton. And it elevates the opposition. Their defense has not been that great lately. In fact, they've been one of the worst 3-point defenses in the league in their last 5 or so games here. So with the Cavs on a back-to-back, I still trust them to score enough, and I think both teams over 106 is even money. I would go 10, 107, 108 if you want to ladder up, or just get a little bit of better juice, maybe with smaller units. The Cavs have scored 109 in 8 straight roadies prior to their dud in Orlando last night, and we know Orlando is an incredible defensive team, incredible effort. Celtics are also a good defensive team, but not necessarily as vital when they're scoring 124 at home. Like Josh said, Cavs also shot 9 for 40 from 3 in that game. And like I said, the Celtics have struggled to guard the 3-point line lately. They've struggled to deal with Donnie Mitchell, who had 44 his last trip to Boston, who's averaging 37.5 in 4 games against Boston since he joined Cleveland. Now, I mean, the last 4 matchups, there have been 4 overtimes total, including a double overtime game. So that affects these totals, but both teams have gone 113 plus. There's not been a lot of points in overtime, not been a lot of pace either in that game. And neither team has had very good shooting splits. I think this year, both teams are more efficient offensively, much better shooting with Max Strus joining the Cavs with Porzingis in there. The Celtics are hitting 18 threes at 41% at home and not depending on free throws, which is good against the Cavs team that actually allows fewer free throws in losses, but they allow 118 points per game in losses. So we're just going to kind of probably see this type of game state. Last thing I'll say is like the Cavs only score 102 on back-to-backs, but I looked at what those situations were. Those are against the Knicks, Heat, Raptors, the 3 grossest Eastern Conference matchups you can imagine in terms of going over. They're one back-to-back against Indiana, got to 238. And again, that was not with a lot of pace, but it was with Indy having a great assist-to-turnover ratio and hitting a ton of threes, which Boston can do as well. Obviously, you're not worried about Boston getting to 108 or whatever, but I think the Cavs can join them.
Yeah, this is strictly a bet of if you think the Cavs are coming along for the ride. And I'm not even uncomfortable with like a -9.5 bet for the Celtics, to be honest. And maybe I should be because of the recent history and the way that they do match up. Obviously, if they can get out on threes because they feel comfortable letting guys drive once they get down low into the duo that is Jared Allen and Evan Mobley. But we still don't know if Evan Mobley is going to play in this one, as we know he missed last night's game. So we'll have to see what the deal is with him there. So either way, like, yeah, if he's not there, I still think the Celtics, we're not worried about, like you said. It's just whether or not the Cavs are going to come along for the ride. If game state is there, great. Just hope it doesn't turn into this like nasty, really big blowout for you for this bet to hit. But I'm going to go into a game here to finish out the best bets, Nate, with Sac and the Clippers, which is always a fun matchup to talk about. But I'm between 2 bets, and I think I'm just going to split the unit on the under 234.5 and Sac -2.5. I start to like Sac -2.5 a lot more as I look at more deeply, and the Clippers here on the second leg of a back-to-back after a long game with a lot of points against the Blazers, where they gave up 127 to the Blazers in true Clippers form, where you're just like, oh, you don't care. Got it. You're making it very clear you don't care. And this has happened before where like they played a game that they didn't care. They lost to the Denver Nuggets with nobody playing because Reggie Jackson and DeAndre Jordan turned back the clock on them. And then they played the next night in a game that they lost that they were probably trying. I assume that they wanted to win that game. It seemed like they were just sort of like leaving everybody out because they wanted to beat the Lakers, and then they didn't. And so now I think they're in a similar situation where it's like they bit off more than they can chew. They thought like, oh, we'll just let the Blazers, we won't try against the Blazers. Then we end up needing to try, and we have to play guys a lot more minutes. And then we end up, in this situation versus a Kings team that's coming in. And I think the under 234.5 is good, but Sac +2.5 is just as good. So I'm going with both of them, like I said, splitting the unit. And the second leg of a back-to-back is everything here for the Clips. After they played last night, they with, like you said here, 136 defensive rating, as they just sort of slept through the game and were able to score kind of at will at times because the Blazers didn't really offer much resistance down low. Once they got into the mid-range, all they can really do is defend the three-point line. But they're playing at the third slowest pace right now, the Clips. And, in the last 10 games, it's interesting. They actually have the third most fast break points. And I think the last 10 games are a really good benchmark, by the way, because that's when we've gotten a little bit more time for this Clippers team to mesh, and we can really start to see what they're going to turn into with this squad of guys. And in the last 10, third most fast break points. Russ has a lot to do with that. Sac is 22nd in fast break points, but both of these teams are getting back on defense and limiting those transition points to top 5, right? Both of them are in the top 5 there. The paint points there as well. It's why DeMontis has had a few games where he struggled, a few games that he's done fine. It's always like sort of a 50-50 matchup with him and Zoo. And the Clips are really, really good with Zubac down there, limiting centers and limiting teams to the third fewest paint points per game as well. So like there's a lot of stuff here that's just sort of nasty. It's gone over a number of times. Obviously, we all have that 350 whatever game stuck in our head as well when they went to overtime a year ago or so. Some of the numbers are bloated as a result of that when these teams match up. But in this current game state with the Kings on the road where they score roughly 8 fewer points per game, you got the Clips at home where they score also 8 fewer points per game, but are putting up a bunch more as well, or giving up a bit fewer as well, at home, 114. So I do think there's going to be something to be. I'm sorry, they're giving up 103. They're scoring 111. So I think 234 is too much for Sac on the road, where they do play a bit slower. Everybody except for De'Aaron Fox is worse, to be honest with you, on the road, and he does a lot of the carrying and the bulk of the scoring there. So I think he'll still be able to do that, but I still think 234.5 for the way that the Clips especially are going to want to play this game is too high.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the Kings are slight underdogs. You said -2.5. They're the dogs here on the road. Both teams on a back-to-back. I wouldn't try to pick a winner until I know more about this. I mean, it's so weird what the Clippers are doing that I don't think Kawhi or PG have missed a back-to-back this year after being, like Mr. Glass the last few years. And then they have to go out and play 41 minutes last night. That's got to affect things in some ways. Like, I really wouldn't be surprised if Kawhi is scratched for this one or somebody is out, and then you get more Harden, Westbrook. And I mean, Harden has been like a walking under since he joined this team, just slowing it down, pounding out every possession. And then they hide him on defense because they have good defensive wings. So it's not like he's just giving up points the other way. I do like the under look, I think, more here than picking a side. Because the Clippers, I was trying to find weaknesses in their defensive numbers, and they're good everywhere. And a lot of that is just scheme. It's a lot of good wings. Unless you face like a true back down center who can dominate Zubac, like I don't think Sabonis is that. So other than De'Aaron Fox, I don't see this getting into a very high scoring game with the Kings on the road.
Yeah, exactly. Other than De'Aaron Fox, and with Sac on the back-to-back as well. Yeah, there's some numbers there that it's not always going to go over. But either way, that is all the time we have for you in Best Bets. Continue to follow along, like and subscribe to that page. Check out the Playa Props that we're also bringing you each and every weekday. Until we see you next, happy betting.